From cultivating opportunities to navigating regulations, the cannabis industry is booming. But with growth comes complexity. Qualified appraisers are going to play a critical role in determining the true value of business properties and licensing in this emerging market. Join us in this episode as we explore how professional valuations are shaping the future of cannabis. As we welcome our special guest, Thunder Walker.
Hi, this is Thaddaus Dawson. Welcome to the 10K MA podcast. I'm really excited today. We've got a fantastic, outstanding guest who I know and have had the opportunity to work with, and I completely admire and respect. We're working with my normal co-hosts, Shani Allridge. Bill is doing holiday stuff and not available. This podcast is super exciting and super helpful. You know, our goal is to close the wealth gap through valuation and updating the appraisal model, which also means bringing opportunities in the appraisal space. And today's episode is valuation of cannabis and hemp. This is a growing, unregulated opportunity for people to use appraisal skills to become specialists in the valuation of cannabis and hemp. The cannabis, you will be able to learn how to value from seed to sale. It's a booming opportunity. Hemp was made legal with the 2018 farming bill. And so there's so many different and exciting things going on in the space. We'll talk about the opportunities in being able to value the cannabis and the hemp, and also educate about the difference between the two plants and the criminalization of the plants, and how important the valuation process is in the criminalization of it as well. So today's guest is none other than Miss Thunder Walker. Thunder is, I don't know what to call Thunder. She is the queen of cannabis. She's an appraiser. She has had a construction company, a mortgage company. She had Women Moving Dirt, an initiative. I am lucky to have worked with her on a committee with another appraisal organization. And it reminds me of what the students talked about last week as far as get involved and collaboration. I worked on a committee with Shani, with the Empire Board, for a number of years, and you never know what is going to come out of these relationships when you commit and open yourself up to the opportunity. And I've had the opportunity to work with Thunder at another organization, of which we did not always agree. And so before we even get started, let's just address the hair in the room. I'm sorry, the elephant, the hair.
The nerve!
So basically, come on, our cameras are regulated for my hair length. So if you're not able to get all Thunder's hair into the picture, that is why, because it's been calibrated to my hair, which we have to sort of work on. And I met Thunder, let me say, probably whenever the NARAB convention was in Cleveland, whatever year that was, 2018,
19, something.
So that's when I met Thunder. Yeah. And the first thing I asked was, dude, what's up with the hair? And her response to me was, it is my trademark. It's my brand. And in my silly little limited mind, I was like, now that's got to be the silliest shit I ever heard in my life. But she was ahead of her time. She is a genius. This is her trademark. It is her hair. This is one of her packages. We worked together on the membership committee for another organization, and I am very happy to say that we drove the membership up in that organization over 50% with our efforts. And working with her, I just learned to respect her grind and her hustle. And I'm super excited to have her here today. She's toured the country with her, I'll let her tell you about it, but it's her cannabis Smoke Tour or Up and Smoke Tour. She's also host Smoke Currency. That's it. Smoke Currency. So that's the whole goal. We're trying to teach you all how to get currency in the valuation space. She's one of the leading experts in the valuation of cannabis. Her father was a real estate appraiser. So she grew up writing and typing reports. Now she's taking her appraisal background with her cannabis background and is specializing in valuing cannabis. She can teach you how to value cannabis from seed to sale, grow houses, equipment, and also the biggest thing is differentiating between cannabis and hemp. So, without further ado, and me keep on running my mouth, Rick, you might have to cut some of this out. I'm gonna let Miss Thunder Walker talk, but I'm gonna turn it over to Shawnee first so she can ask any questions. And Thunder, I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast today.
I'm excited to be here, Thaddaus and Shawnee. And Rick.
Yes. And Rick. So, when Thad told me, Thunder, that we're going to be having this conversation today, I said, ooh, controversial. This is going to be so good. Because the reality is, if people have their thoughts about cannabis, it's going to change today. Because it can be looked at as a thing that's like, oh, don't talk about it, it's bad, it's terrible. But in reality, it's not. And it can be extremely helpful to a lot of people. And I'm so happy to have you here today. So happy to hear more about what you have going on.
Thank you. Thank you. And you're absolutely right. There was a huge marketing campaign to make people believe that cannabis and hemp is harmful not only to the body, but also to our way of life, basically. And if you go back and you do your research, you will find that we actually made multiple products out of hemp. From Levi's blue jeans to tennis shoes, hemp will allow you to build. It is a building crop. You can actually make fiber and building products, and then you can also realize that previously cannabis was used in a lot of medicinal medicines before there was this huge campaign. And then a lot of us grew up on the war on drugs. So if you were part of that, and they still have it today, it's a whole week, Say No to Drugs. And they have classified and scheduled cannabis as a drug that's similar to meth or to cocaine, and it's just not. And so what we've learned is that there were marketing dollars that actually took generations of people and kind of directed them to believe that this is reefer madness. And so for me, I'm trying to go back and help not only the world understand what cannabis is about, but also my community to understand what hemp and cannabis is about, because I think we have started to miss the green wave. And I think it's important to understand what that means for our community. A lot of us were experienced people being arrested and also incarcerated for cannabis. So we have been conditioned and programmed to believe that this is a very horrible drug in this community.
But Thunder, not only were people arrested for cannabis, they were arrested for hemp as well. And so there is a distinct difference between hemp and cannabis. And there's not enough THC in hemp to really get you high. It's supposedly 3%.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the fact that it was being processed and people getting time for hemp as well as for cannabis, there was something to say about the criminalization of it. And I know we will talk about that, but originally the hemp was criminalized as a way of promoting the Industrial Revolution. And they could get a 2-for-1 along with the cannabis, because at some point the government was afraid that all the black and brown people would be getting the pure young women high with cannabis and taking advantage of them. So it was cannabis was criminalized for that, but then the hemp was criminalized as a way to promote the Industrial Revolution by for the simple fact that Henry Ford built a car out of hemp in 1941 that was lighter and 10 times stronger than steel. So if you're able to build a car out of hemp, then you no longer need steel. Can you speak to that, Thunder?
Absolutely. Hemp, the process of using hemp is so, to me, revolutionary. It allows us to not only refurbish our crops, create better soil, remove contaminants. When you think about nuclear waste, hemp is one of those things that can pull it out of the atmosphere. It can pull it out of the soil. And so this terrified those people that wanted to make a lot of money because, one, hemp is and was very cheap to manufacture. So I think what you're going to see is that we're moving back towards that. But those people that had the lobbying dollars to actually go in and remove hemp from access to the communities really changed a lot. And it hindered us not only to be able to revolutionize different ways of making products, but also making it affordable for just the general public. And that's one of the things that happened when they decide to criminalize hemp and also cannabis. And
But
let
there
me
was
just
a
start by
period of
saying,
legalization for hemp during World War II, where it was the
Mhm,
hemp for America because the ropes that DuPont was making would disintegrate in the ocean. And so they
mhm,
had to start making the ropes out of hemp stand up to the sea, the salt in the seawater. So we've
absolutely.
known the opportunities with hemp. The forefathers grew hemp. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they grew hemp. The Constitution is even written on hemp. So
Mhm.
hemp can actually save the planet because it takes 6 months to grow hemp and 60 years to grow a tree. So you can also
Mhm.
use hemp for paper, concrete. You can use it for drywall, roofing materials. The issue now is the processing of the hemp. So, and I know you know more about that than me, so I'm going to let you go ahead and jump in there.
So I want to, for those that's in your audience, I want to explain the difference between hemp and cannabis so we can start there first. Hemp is the male plant, cannabis is the female plant. And what's
So
so
you telling me
interesting
the
about
plants have sex?
absolutely. Absolutely. The hemp plant cannot necessarily reproduce the bud with the THC that the cannabis plant can. So we're strictly talking right now about cannabis. I mean, excuse me, about hemp. And hemp has less than 3% of THC. So I think that when the audience understands how important that this is for not only the environment but also for our future of being able to revolutionize and pull plastics out of the environment, being able to use different hemp products for healing purposes. It's just the results are endless, I believe, on how much we can use hemp. There's no disputing how important hemp is. But what happens is the plastic revolution. And as a little girl, I can remember the Tupperware parties. Do y'all remember the Tupperware parties? Yes, the plastic
I'm not that
revolution.
old.
I can remember that. Okay, we're gonna let you have that one. But I can remember how important plastic became in the '60s and '70s, and people really liked it. I mean, they just thought, okay, I can use this to save food, and it was just gonna. I mean, they had a huge marketing campaign, and that's another reason why hemp was pushed aside because they literally did a huge marketing campaign for that. And so you can't always believe everything you hear. You have to do your research, and as history will tell us, sometimes we revert back to what's better for us as far as our environment and what is better for us physically.
So with the 2018 Farm Bill legalizing hemp and then that being back up for renewal now, what do you see as the opportunity in the space? because I really believe that there's an opportunity for young people to specialize in the valuation of hemp and cannabis because it's not regulated. But if you take utilizing appraisal principles and you're able to apply them, I know you are doing some wonderful things on your smoke currency tour as far as bringing awareness and traveling the country.
So there's huge opportunities out here, not only to get into the industry. You can be an auxiliary business getting into the industry. You can be a landlord getting into the industry. We really need more people to actually purchase property in the green zone and allow for more transparency in whether you're doing leasing or real estate transactions. So there's so many different opportunities to get into this particular, what we call the green zone. And the reason why it's called the green zone is because we're actually creating a friendly 420 area, whether it's for hemp or whether it is for cannabis. And so what that means is that there's regulations that requires us to be about 1,000 square feet from any school or church in most states. And then we have regulations of how we have to advertise in those spaces and what those spaces look like. But there's
Is it
so
true
much
that
opportunity.
people pay 50% more rent for a space to rent retail cannabis and they pay their rent in cash because they're not allowed to bank the proceeds from hemp? I mean, I'm sorry, cannabis.
Hemp and cannabis, there's very limited banking for both. We are just starting on the cusp of being able to bank for hemp. You have
I
to
thought hemp
take
you could bank for hemp now because of the 2018 Farm Bill, but you were restricted in banking for cannabis.
well, it's both. Let me explain. So, if you are banking for hemp, there's very limited amount of banks that will allow you to bank hemp or cannabis. But if you're banking for hemp, you have to show your COAs, which is your certificate of analysis, for every particular product that you are selling. And that is so cumbersome to have to be able to show that because, as you know, with hemp products or cannabis products, you are rotating different strains, you're rotating different products, whether it's creams or topicals, edibles, whatever, tinctures. And so, if a different strain comes along or a different batch, you actually have to get that batch tested and show those things, your operating cost and your analysis, to a bank that's willing to, their charter is willing to take on hemp and or cannabis. But let me take that further because this is huge for people to understand. Not only are we doing that, we're also having to pay an additional fee. So most time when you're in business, you may have free banking. If you are owning a regular business, you don't have to pay an extra service charge. But if you're in hemp, you may be paying $150 to $1,000 a month just to have a hemp bank. And then if you are actually in cannabis, you may be paying $1,000 a month service charge to even $2,000 to $3,000 a month service charge just to be able to bank. They also will tell you that they don't want you to walk in their bank with the cash money. So some of these banks actually will tell you, hey, you're going to drop your money off at an undisclosed location. You will not be able to go into the bank, into the lobby. We will count your money and then we will turn around and give you a receipt 24 to 48 hours later of how much money that you've deposited minus the fee that they're going to charge. So there's banks out there that will service cannabis or hemp businesses, but we are being charged a lot of money for those particular banks. And not only that, when you
Honey,
talk
that
about
sounds a
real,
lot like money laundering.
well, yeah, of course. That's exactly, in my opinion, what it is. But
But they gave you all the. They told you you had to do it that way, so it's
right,
it's legitimate. You're just following the
if
rules.
they're right, if their charter is willing to take on banking and cannabis, it's a very limited amount that are willing to do it. If they're willing to take that on, then they're upcharging you all those fees. It's the same thing with the real estate properties. If let's say that you walk into a space and you see a space on LoopNet or one of those different commercial places that advertise commercial buildings, and they say it's $15 a square foot, and you're like, hey, I can really afford this. Let me do a 5-year lease, and I'm going to give them exactly what they're asking for. Once they find out that you are a cannabis or hemp business, they can easily roll that up to 3 times that amount. And we see that all along. Not only do we see that, you have to get your property or your lease before you get your license. So you cannot do cannabis or hemp without real estate. So you have to have an address first. And so once you get that address, and sometimes we're paying 2 to 3 times that amount, then what happens is you have to pay that rent until you get your license. So literally during your build out, all of that process. And sometimes licenses can take from the state 3 years, 4 years. So you're paying rent on those properties until you actually are licensed. That's real popular in New Jersey and other states. New York, there is a limited amount of real estate in New York to actually do cannabis. Same with Hawaii.
So, Thunder, how many states is cannabis actually legal in to sell, and what are the restrictions, roughly?
Well, that's a continually changing number, but we're up to approximately 30 plus states. We have a couple that's coming on right now. I think Delaware is just now coming on, and there was one that just passed this election year in November.
And then, so
And
when we say legal cannabis, what does that mean? Is that saying that someone can walk around and consume it, or someone can, purchase it, and then you got to go somewhere and hide to consume it? Like,
Great
what do you mean by
question.
legal?
Great question. Keep in mind, cannabis is legal in certain states. It is illegal in the United States. So therefore, anyone that's in this field, in the green zone, we're playing and we're using rules based off of each state and sometimes based off of each county. Okay. And so that, or each city. So sometimes you have different rules based off of whatever state that you're in, and also whatever county or city that you're in. And so that's how that can change. So that's a very good question. What it really means is that there are medicinal states, and then there's adult use and recreational states. Okay. And those all mean different things for different people. I'm currently located in the state of Oklahoma, and we are a medical state. I believe that we should be the blueprint for a national medical card, because what we do here is different from any other state. We have a lot of stigma removing, but we also have a lot of issues that we're trying to fix. What I love about Oklahoma is we let everybody play. Okay. The law was produced and written by a Black woman, Senator Connie Johnson. She's retired now. But what she was able to do is produce a law that was beneficial to everyone. And what that means is it only costs $2,500 per license, where some other states are millions and millions of dollars, right? But in Oklahoma and also in New Mexico, it's affordable to actually get on the field and have a licensed business. I think in New Mexico, it's like $500 per license. Right now, we have a moratorium on our license in Oklahoma, so you would have to buy someone else's license, but they're not issuing any more licenses right now in the state of Oklahoma, versus other states such as New York, California, Oregon. You're talking millions and millions of dollars to actually own a dispensary, processor, or grow, or have any type of license in those states, which limits people of color, women, people that have disabilities, veterans from entering into the market. And so one of the goals that I am pushing is to make sure that people have legal access, but also there are opportunities for people of color and women to get into this space.
So to that point, I got 2 questions. The first one is there a difference between the valuation of medical cannabis and adult use cannabis?
I believe that there's a difference between evaluation of medical cannabis and adult use cannabis. Yes. And let me tell you why. Because when you look at the market approach, and so there's three approaches. We all understand that when you look at the market approach, it and the cost approach, it costs a lot more to do medical cannabis. A lot of times we use organic soil. There's different things that we will not allow into the plant growing process. Okay, when you're looking at adult use, you're looking at so the quality tends to be better. The percentage of THC and the testing tends to be better in a medical state. Obviously, when you're looking at
So
adult
cannabis,
use,
so to the cost approach, cannabis has to be grown in a controlled environment. It can't just be grown outside, can it?
yeah, it can be grown outside. Cannabis is a plant. It's just a plant. It can really be grown outside. In Oklahoma, you can go to certain areas and you'll find it growing in people's backyard. So
Does
yeah,
In
it
their
affect
backyard?
yes. In Hawaii, it's grown outside a lot. Yes. And Shawnee, I don't want to misrepresent your question too. I think you asked me a separate question and you said, do people have to hide and sometimes
Yeah.
go to
Uh-huh.
what I love about the medical state, and I just wanted to circle back around Thaddaus to that. So, what I love about a medical state is because it's your medicine, they cannot tell you where to consume. And I love that about the medical program. So, if you have a card, then you have an opportunity to consume your medicine where you choose to consume it. Okay.
I guess
But
that's kind of like breastfeeding. You get the opportunity to feed your child anywhere.
As long
similar.
as you do it respectfully, I guess. Yeah, respectfully
Yeah.
breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yes. But you cannot, and
Dad is
let me
always
just
trying to do a comparison with something.
you
One
cannot,
thing
let me
gonna
just
do, we gonna find that comparison. Yes, that's the appraiser in him, the comparison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but let me just say this: there are a lot of places that in adult use that you have to hide, and so people think adult use is really great, and they love adult use. The problem with adult use is that sometimes you have to hide, and I don't like that. I was just in Vegas. This month, and we were at a club. We were there for a huge cannabis convention. It was a legal situation. But unfortunately, they confiscated the cannabis because we were going into a nightclub and they said that we couldn't have it there. So adult use is an issue to me because of the fact that I do use it for medicine.
So, Thunder, you talked about the three approaches to value, and you just assumed everybody knew what you were talking about. Can you hit on that a little bit from the cost approach standpoint and what would be involved in building that, and also from the market approach and where would you get your comparable sales and how would you come about that? And then in the income approach, how you would project the income based on all of the expenses that go along with processing the cannabis, as far as security, banking, and those things, barriers to entry in the valuation process. You're on mute, Thunder.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't mean to push mute. Okay, you gave me a lot of stuff there. So I'm going to start out with the income approach, right? The income approach is looking at from seed to sale how much you're actually paying to actually produce the project, produce the product. Okay, the strain. Seeds can cost anywhere from $1.50 all the way up to $10,000, $20,000, depending on what the seed is. There are seed banks across the country that actually holds valuable seeds like the OG strains, which are the original strains, some of the original strains of cannabis or hemp. What I think is really interesting is every time we have a raid, there's some scarcity. I'm sorry, help me with that word. With that, with
Scarcity.
cannabis. Yes, thank you. Because of the fact that the law enforcements, they not only come in and they seize cannabis or they seize hemp, but they will also destroy the mother plant and they will destroy the seed, which could destroy the strain. So we are doing everything we can in this industry to make sure that we hold on to those original seeds. They're very, very expensive. It's almost like when you talk about some the Beatles, their masters, or Michael Jackson's masters. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about strains. And these seeds are important. So when you talk about the income approach, it's from seed to sale, literally producing the product and how much it will sell for, moving into the sales comparison approach from one place to the other. So that's not only about cannabis. When you start talking about that, you're talking about packaging. You're talking about location, real estate, real estate, real estate, right? Location, location, location. So you're talking about that. You're talking about if there is an influencer or a celebrity that's endorsing that product, right? So that adds value to the to appraising a particular strain.
So,
And
Thunder, one of the other things when you're talking about the value and the placement, you start to look at the demographics and what's the income in a 1 mile radius, 3 mile radius, 5 mile radius. Is there a specific demographic that relates to cannabis, or does it go across all spectrums?
that's what I love about cannabis. It goes across all spectrums. This is the one plant that I think unites us all. And what I mean by that is that previously for 420, and 420 is a cannabis holiday, right? 420 has a long history. It's the story is some young people ditched school and they went and smoked marijuana in the back near the football field, and now they call it 420 because that's our national holiday. I mean, well, I think it's probably international, right? And so, to answer your question about that, is that it's simply it does mean different things across different areas. So in Oklahoma City, I could buy a pound of hemp or cannabis for one price versus it's going to cost more in another place, just depending on, and it could be the same strain, just depending on that location in that particular state or city, right? And then all of the fees that happens as far as real estate, taxing, all of that is included on how they price cannabis. And that brings us back to what you talked about and brought up earlier, is how it affects us legally and how it affects people that have been incarcerated for selling cannabis on the legacy market. And we call it the legacy market because those are people that have been prosecuted and they are selling cannabis what would be considered illegally because of the fact that they are not paying taxes on that cannabis, and it's not legal in that particular state, or maybe the quantities are not legal in that state.
Are they considered experts in cannabis now and qualify for legalized jobs to be able to get licenses to sell cannabis since it is legal in some places?
Yes, there are some programs out there for people that have been incarcerated and or have been arrested previously. They are moved to the front of the line. There's some social equity programs. Shout out to 40 Tons. Look them up. I love their story. He went to prison for selling cannabis illegally. And I didn't know this, but literally you only have 3 shots at clemency. And so he was able to, he tried 3 times with 2 times with President Obama. And it was literally Trump who gave him clemency. But there are people out there that are serving 40 years for nonviolent criminal offenses with cannabis. And some of them may have not even had cannabis on them when they were arrested. 40 years. And we are talking about cannabis right now. Previously, this would even be illegal to talk about cannabis like this. So there.
Real quick, I would like for you to go into this is where the valuation of cannabis is so important, especially when it comes to the criminalization and the amount of time you get based on the valuation. There is no measure of value, but when you have a legal drug bust and somebody says this has a street value of $1 million, who put that value on there? And was it really cannabis or was it hemp? Did it have a certain amount of potency? Who
That's a good question.
that value? And that value determines how much time you get. So I'm gonna this is your lane. But these are questions that I have as far as how that works and how important it is to have an advocate, even in that position, to place a value
Yes.
on it.
Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is why when we have these conversations about what I do and why it's so important, you have to understand that when you see on the news that someone just got busted, we found $500 million worth of cannabis. And I think this just happened in Massachusetts. There was just a bust just recently. $500 million worth of cannabis. And then they show all these bags, these plastic bags full of cannabis. And if you're not educated on this, you're like, oh my God, our tax dollars are really working, blah, blah, blah. But who said it was worth that? Nobody except for law enforcement. And what they're using is top tier cannabis prices in their communities and their street value. That's what they call street value. And I am one to challenge street value, because street value is what gets our community so much time. And when I say so much time, I'm talking 10, 15, 20, 40 years based off of cannabis that has not been tested. There are people that are sitting in prison right now. And if we had the opportunity to test the cannabis like we can test it right now, some of it may not even be cannabis. I'm just being real.
Wow.
And so there's THCA.
So you saying that people are out there serving time with jersey numbers for selling garbage that you couldn't get high off of?
Correct. Because there's some bottom shelf, what we call bottom shelf cannabis, and that may sell for $3 a gram, right?
So that's like the mad dog of cannabis.
Yes, that's like that dirt cannabis that you were talking about that could grow outside. Yes, that's what that is.
So the
But
high
law
quality cannabis is grown inside.
Well, you have good cannabis that's grown outside too, and what happens is you have to create the effect of outside, even though it may be grown inside. If it's grown inside, we have control of the water, we have control of the vitamins that we put in, we have control of the dirt, we have control of the fan systems, and we have the control of lighting. So we create an outdoors effect inside of a cannabis grow, right? But cannabis is a plant. It's a plant. It is naturally forming. We didn't create it as human beings, okay? So cannabis was here before we even got here. We just found it. And so
So
I
how do
think
you
people
get
need
all of
to
those
understand
different strains of cannabis? And then the other thing is we talked before about cannabis, hemp being male, cannabis being female. Can the male cannabis change his sex to female? And can the female change his sex to male, increasing and decreasing their potency?
Very good question. This is going to be really interesting. I need everybody, I need you to understand this one, okay? A male plant of hemp cannot come in and change itself to a female plant of cannabis. But a female plant of cannabis, if she's stressed enough, she will become hemp.
Ooh,
And so,
don't stress her
yeah,
out. Don't stress
okay.
her.
Don't
Leave
stress
her
her out.
alone. Don't do
Yes.
that. See what happens to what you
Don't do
did to
that.
me? Yeah.
And that's what I love about this. If we just had these conversations, nature is so beautiful. And if we have these conversations and people actually do their research, they'll find out cannabinoids are in not only cannabis and hemp, but cannabinoids are actually in broccoli. Cannabinoids are in a lot of different foods that we consume. It's just that hemp can be a little bit more hallucinogenic, and cannabis can be a little bit more hallucinogenic, and that's the difference than with the cannabinoids. But let's talk about one more thing before we get off of this point. We also have to measure the terps, and terps basically are really what intensifies what THC feels like. So you can smell it. It actually gives that cannabis the edge. So if you're looking at normal cannabis that's grown outdoors or indoors, the other thing that they're going to test for is the terps, the
But
terpenes.
does the hemp have terps and based on the way the hemp is being processed, can it be processed into Delta 8 and Delta 9, which then gives you those hallucinogens?
Yes, it can be processed into Delta 8 and Delta 9 to give you those feelings of euphoric. But I personally think it's totally different. Yes, people can get high, but it's not a natural forming type of high, is what the way I would describe it.
Even though hemp is still a plant. So the fact that it still only has the 3% THC, so is that more of a mood altering, stabilization? Exactly what would be the difference?
The difference is it's not the same. It's just not the same. One is made manufactured, and one is naturally occurring.
So what would it take for someone to start to become a cannabis appraiser today?
Well, to me, it takes more of education and learning about the all the different spaces in cannabis and what it takes to move from seed to sale, legacy to legal. I think it's all about educating yourself, and you can move into this space. It does not require a license, like a lot of different appraisers don't, such as uh, business appraisals don't require a license. Jewelry appraisers don't require a license through your
So do you
particular
need to
state.
be able to
So,
follow use PAP in order to appraise cannabis?
no, you do not.
Oh,
So I'm really excited to say that we will be teaching cannabis valuation at 10KMA as not under the apprenticeship program, but we will touch on that a little bit. But also, Thunder is in the process of finalizing her book, and we will be teaching this on our platform next year. I'm really excited. I'm really proud at how much she has grown when she set off on this mission and started to learn. Now she has become the face. I believe she had Rick Ross in Oklahoma. She's got Gucci Mane's coming up on a tour as well. So she is definitely the face and the hair of cannabis valuation all across the country. They've been inviting her to several different platforms, and she is really doing her thing and doing well. She's out of Texas, but her shop is actually in Oklahoma. So I'm really proud of what you've been able to do, what you've been able to accomplish. I know you are teaching some courses in hemp and cannabis in Oklahoma. I was just there recently at the Oklahoma Black Researchers Project, and we had an opportunity to do some things together there. I'm super excited to be able to start offering the valuation courses. I'm very happy to be proofreading your book right now and waiting for the finalization of that for us to be able to offer next year. And we are moving forward. And I think that we have a whole nother section that I would like to do on the medicinal purpose and the valuation, not medicinal evaluation, but also medicinal valuation and criminalization. So I don't want this to be the last time that we have you on the podcast. I know that you are starting your own podcast, and I'm really excited for us to be able to continue to work together and collaborate as we crisscross across the country, educating people on the process, as well as the opportunity to close the wealth gap through learning how to be a valuation expert in this space.
Thank you, Thaddeus and Shawnee. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I really think that our community needs to jump head first into this and start learning about everything that's going on in this space, whether it's for wellness or whether it's for building wealth in our community. I think this is huge. Please don't miss it. This green zone and this green wave is happening right now. You see people on Forbes magazine inside the cover, and it's been affecting people in our communities heavily that have been serving time or maybe right now out on parole. We need to really start understanding this plant, understanding that it's a crop, understanding that it is going to change and has changed the economy in every state that it has become legal. So just recently, New York announced that they made $100 million this past year. They're on track to be over billions of dollars next year. And so when these emerging markets come about, it's important for, if you're in that community and you want to get involved, reach out to me. I'm always willing to push that person into their destiny and help them understand it on a fast track what cannabis is about and what hemp is about. There are no limitations to what you can do. You can cross pollinate your current skills into the cannabis space. So I would love for anybody to follow me on I Am Thunder Walker at Instagram and LinkedIn. You can check me out, Thunder Walker, or go to my website, register to the thunderwalkerexperience.com. I would love to push you into your destiny. Even if this is just your part-time gig, we need to see more Black and brown faces in this space. And women, hey, we need to see you guys. Bring it on.
To our link, the 10K MA podcast, and we'll be linking you to like us, subscribe. Forgot to say that. Make sure you get in on all of those platforms and what we're doing and what we'll be bringing. Thunder will be teaching her classes on our platform this year, which is really, really exciting to be able to create a opportunity for people in the space and specialize. Shani, I know I neglected everything that we've been talking about and talked too much again. So I'm going to go ahead and let you close out this podcast with a real strong valuation close, and then we'll come back and have part two. But I'm gonna let you go ahead and close it out, Shani. I overtalked again, and my sincere apologies.
I don't even know if you really mean that. Do you really mean that, Pat?
Oh,
hey, I've been listening for a minute. This is him. This is the true self.
This is authenticity.
Yes. So if you gonna be with us, you gotta ride with us, and this is the driver, okay?
But I'm so excited because it's such a great opportunity in the space, and it's really huge, and I want folks to be able to tap in. And it's something that's been criminalized and kept away from us, and now there's an opportunity to be able to monetize and be able to monetize with your head held high and be able to make a difference. Some of the other work that Thunder is doing is agri-hood development, and some of the things that we'll be able to offer to the Black and brown farmers as an opportunity to be able to close the wealth gap. And it's all based on valuation and opportunity.
Yeah. You know, when you mentioned Thunder earlier, how, at one point we weren't even able to have these conversations. And so we've made some great strides with just being able to, we're having a conversation on a podcast about cannabis and hemp and consumption of it across 30 something states in America. So this is a big deal. This is huge. And then you mentioned women, that's that's a huge takeaway, that women can feel, like Dad said, confident enough to ask the questions, get familiarized with it, and do what it takes to be a player in this particular sector of cannabis and hemp. So I think it's incredible that what's happening, what you're doing. And we would love for you to get back on this podcast so we can ask a whole lot more other questions that are really important to share with the audience.
Thank you so much. It's places like this where we are changing people's minds and removing the stigma. I think just to kind of go back, previously I used to do, and still do, an Airbnb. And I was 3 years as a entrepreneur in the Airbnb industry. It was before it became very popular. Now you see it on social media and everything else. Get you 5 homes, blah blah blah, and then you're going to do this. Our community is 3 to 5 years behind on every opportunity that comes our way, and there's nothing holding you back. Let me say that clearly. There is nothing holding you back from jumping in right now and understanding how you can cross pollinate. The reason why we don't do it is because we have had years and years of programming that states that if you jump into this arena, you will probably have a legal issue, or maybe you might get addicted, or all of those things. And I try to share with people a simple way of understanding this industry. It's very clear. What's clear about this industry is that it has met a need and continues to meet a need, whether it's in the legacy market or whether it is in the legal market. So my hope is that that person that's sitting on that third pew in the church and believes that this is going to be harmful for the community, when that particular person has a hip replacement or a knee replacement, that they look to CBD, they look to hemp, they may even look to cannabis as something that will help them move ahead in their journey of wellness. And once you are able to reach that particular person, they will vote to make sure that this is accessible to everyone. And so that's what I want to achieve by going on these programs and actually talking about my journey along with my daughter's journey, who's disabled, with cannabis, and why CBD and THC has helped us move along that process. And so I'm here to help anyone that wants to understand it and wants to play double dutch with me in this cannabis space.
So, Thunder, that being said, we're going to close out this segment of the 10K MA podcast. And then you have just set us up for segment 2. When we come back, we'll be talking about the medical benefits of cannabis as well as cannaboomers utilizing cannabis for pain relief and pain management. One of which, in the last 3 years, I have had hip replacement, knee replacement, and disc replacement. So, on that note, we're going to close this segment out, and hopefully our producer will give us a little bit more time for segment 2. Thank you all. Like us, subscribe to us at our 10K MA podcast. We appreciate your time, and happy holidays.